Okay, where's the script? Where's the... They didn't win. Yep, Toyota didn't win. Their unbeaten streak at home since returning is over, as there was some slight surprise at the Arctic Rally Finland, and we'll cover it all in this episode. And we'll also look at a couple of youngsters who might be the future of the WRC after a very impressive debut for one of them this past weekend. But first up, let's check out all of the action and see why Toyota didn't win. The Arctic Rally Finland began on Friday, as we had the longest stage of the rally first off, over 31 kilometres, and it was run twice during the day and then under the night skies. On both occasions we saw the Estonian Tanak blitz to a victory in both stages, establishing over a 20-second lead on the field. Coming back after a very disappointing Monte Carlo rally, he was definitely on top form right from the off, was the 2019 WRC champion. And behind him was Craig Breen, who chased him in Rally Estonia in the Irishman's last out in the WRC car, and he was chasing again after the first, ahead of perhaps pre-event favourite Kalle Rovanperä in his Toyota. A bit disappointing for the young Finn, but still top Toyota ahead of the Hyundai Terry Nerville and his teammate Elfyn Evans, who rounded out the top 5. Rounding out the top 10 we saw Teemu Salonen with a decent start in his Ford ahead of Takamoto Katsuda, and then we had Olli Solberg in his first out in the WRC car at WRC level in 8th, ahead of the man who had to clear the road first up, Sebastian Ogier. Very disappointing for the Frenchman, but a bit expected, and again it's going to be a very tough weekend for the championship leader, ahead of Gus Greensmith, who ran in at the top 10. The Brit at least making it through and finding the car a bit more comfortable than he did at Rally Monte Carlo. On the second day we saw Tanak blitz the first 3 stages once again, apart from stage 4 where Elfyn Evans managed to grab a victory for Toyota, but the Estonian was way ahead of Kalle Rovanperä now at the halfway mark. In third was Craig Breen, but he's been chased down by teammate Terry Nerville, who was having some issues on this rally with communication issues with his co-driver. Remember, they're still a very new pairing. A couple of days before Rally Monte Carlo, he had to change his co-driver from his long-term co-driver, and they're still working through things, like trying to just develop that understanding that you definitely do need when you're driving over 150 kilometres. Rounding out the top 5 again was Elfyn Evans, despite that stage victory. But behind that we saw Olli Solberg up to 6th, showed some superb pace, getting top 5 stage times, and the young Swede definitely impressing on his WRC debut, ahead of Katsuda. Well, up to 8th was Sebastian Ogier, down to 9th was Teemu Salonen, and then Gus Greensmith rounding out the top 10. Perry the Bay, who was also for Hyundai, he had some difficulties already. He had a punch on stage 2, and he's having some engine issues as well, which have forced him to retire on stage 6. And the Frenchman ended his nightmare weekend by also spinning right at the end of the power stage with, again, a suspected engine issue. So definitely a weekend to forget for the young Frenchman. But in the afternoon of Saturday we saw Tanak just maintain the pace. He was saving the tyres for the final stage. Stage 8 being very tricky, with the second run through, very long, very fast stage as well, and it caught out perhaps the driver you'd least expect it to, Sebastian Ogier. The final corner of the day, he slips wide through the right hander, clips the snowbank, gets stuck in the snowbank for 20 minutes. He makes it to the finish in the end, but he does retire for the day, so he can have a better run for like the power stage on the final day. So Kalle Rovanperä was still in second though. He did manage to grab a stage win on stage 7, but he was still way behind Tanak. And in fact, yeah, Terry Nerville breathing down his neck just a couple of seconds back now, the Belgium, after a superb win on stage 8. He saved the tyre for the final stage and won that final stage by 12 seconds ahead of Tanak. And then in 4th we had Craig Breen, a bit disappointing. the Irishman, you know, he's kind of slipped back from the front runners and was coming towards Elfyn Evans in 5th, and the Welshman was closing up on the Irishman. Around 10 seconds was the gap at the end of day 2. And then behind them, outside the top 5, you still had Ollie Solberg. Despite a spin, you know, on stage 7, getting into the snowbank, he was still in 6th, ahead of Katsuda. And then we had Teemu Salonen up to 8th, thanks to OJ's demise, with Greensmith in 9th, and Esa-Pekka Lappi rounding out the top 10 in his VW. But on the final day, only 2 stages, same run through the same stage again, and Evans started off superbly, winning stage 9, and he was closing up to Craig Breen, just a couple seconds back heading into the power stage. Tanak had just eased it back, and he cruised the victory in the end on the final day, leading from start to finish. No one was beating him to his 14th WRC win, and he won the rally by 17.5 seconds ahead of Kalle Rovanperä. He won the 10th stage, the power stage, getting some valuable championship points to make him the youngest leader of a WRC championship at only 20 years of age. In 3rd was Terje Nerval. He was very quick on the final day, but just not quite quick enough to beat Rovanperä, just 2.3 seconds back in the end of the young Finn. But another superb podium for the Belgian, with his ever-developing partnership, as I said, with his new co-driver, and that should only improve as the season goes on. But this is perhaps Nerval's best start to a season. He's perhaps been quicker at the beginning of seasons, I especially remember 2017, but to get a couple of podiums with a new co-driver right at the beginning of the year, superb job from him. And as I say, he's still got those communication issues with his co-driver. Like, he wants him to speak with a bit more of a French accent, so his co-driver's probably going to be working with that for the long break before he head to Croatia. Behind him, just off the podium, was Craig Breen. A superb outing for the Irishman. He almost sounded defeated. He was beating himself up after this rally. He finished 2nd on the power stage as well, grabbing some valuable points in the championship battle for Tanak, for Nerval, taking him off the likes of OJ and Evans. And he shouldn't be beaten up though. This is his first rally in a while. He didn't think he was great, but he was battling right at the front. I know he slipped back, he got into a battle with Evans in the end, but considering it's his first rally in like half a year, superb outing for Breen as he beat Evans to 4th. For Elfyn, he'd a bit like Monte Carlo, never quite comfortable. In general, all the Toyota drivers, if there's one thing in common with what they said, they were never really comfortable this rally. Their just setup just did not seem to work well. Same for Rovanperä, like he wasn't sure, he thought he was driving really well, but he just wasn't comfortable with the car. Even with Katsuda, getting a superb 6th in the end, matching his result in Monte Carlo. He wasn't happy with his driving as well. He was like, he was happy with the result, but you know, he felt he could do better too. And for OJ, he did get 5th on the power stage, so he does get a point. But again, he was just too much cleaning for him in this rally, and in the end, you know, that he says this is the game of the WRC. You win, you get clean in the roads the next rally. It was what happens. So for OJ though, he is heading to tarmac. I expect him to be much stronger in Croatia. Behind Katsuda was Ollie Solberg. He was holding on to 6th into that final stage until he spun on the final stage. He just went for it. He was like, I don't know when I'm going to drive a WRC car again. I'm just going to go for it. And yeah, he lost 6th place. He was very sorry, but he tried. And considering he had to change his co-driver right before the event, as well as his regular co-driver Aaron Johnson tested positive for COVID, so he got the veteran Seb Marshall alongside him in the end. Like a superb debut from Ollie Solberg, incredible pace, and I'm very much looking forward to him being in a WRC car again. Behind Solberg in the standings though, we saw Teemu Salonen, who got that solid result he needed to after that crash in Monte Carlo. I know for M Sport, for Ford, he found that he was quick in the slow pit sections. Like there was quick as like OJ, and you know, like Toyotas, even like Hyundais, but in the faster stuff, it was just slower. Much slower, and with it being a fast rally, unfortunately that is why they are a couple minutes back of the win. But for Salonen, he was 1.5 minutes ahead of a teammate Greensmith, who drove much better than he did in Monte Carlo. He's a bit happy, you know, he says, you know, there's still things to improve, but he's happy to at least wait make it to the finish and ran out the top 10 and go out in the final point was your WRC2 winner, Esa-Pekka Lappi. As in WRC2, it was a similar story to Tanak, with Lappi in his VW's first outing in the Polo 5R5. He dominated from start to finish. He won 8 stages. He won the first 7, and in stage 9, as he won the rally by 47.7 seconds ahead of Andreas Mikkelsen. As a Norwegian, he was, driving as hard as he could, but he was nowhere near matching Lappi. Even though he did win the power stage though, grabbing 5 valuable points for the championship. Very disappointing for the guy who said he was going to dominate WRC2 in Monte Carlo. He got absolutely obliterated by Lappi at Arctic Rally Finland. For 2 drivers who might be fighting for a WRC seat for next season, if Lappi has another couple of outings, Mikkelsen, you might be in trouble, son, for next season. But for the time being, decent result championship wise for him for the WRC2 title. Behind him was the other VW Polo of Nikolai Gryazin, who won stage 8 and was a minute and a half behind teammate Lappi. Good outing for the Russian though, grabbing a podium ahead of Endrin Bryce Nielsen, the Norwegian who was caught up at the last moment by Toke Sport to drive the other Skoda alongside Mikkelsen, finishing in 4th. Very solid outing for the veteran, ahead of Olen Christian Veiby, his fellow countryman. The Norwegian finished 3rd on the power stage, and yeah, a bit disappointing for him. I know it's a solid top 5, maybe the best he could do, but considering the experience he has in these conditions, maybe expected a bit better to maybe battle for the top 4 and even maybe the podium. But he did grab 3rd on the power stage behind Lappi and ahead of Gryazin. In 6th was the returning Martin Prokop to the WRC2, and then Sean Johnson in the Citroen ahead of George Danamay, the Estonian, with Andre Formeau in 9th. He was running in the top 5, but on stage 9 he stopped, and he was 5th on the power stage. So disappointing for the Ford driver, and also very disappointing for the Hyundai, the reigning WRC3 champion Jari Huntunen, who had a DNF on the first stage thanks to an engine issue. And that leads us nicely into WRC3, where we saw some close battles all weekend long, as we also saw the home heroes dominate, with Emil Lindholm leading the way of the first couple of stages, winning both of them, and he was leading when he crashed out of the lead on stage 4, which meant Teemu Asama took over the rally lead, winning stage 4, won stages 6 and 7, and won the rally. Despite finishing 3rd on the power stage, he won by 4.2 seconds ahead of Egon Cardi, Estonian. Very impressive in the second half of the rally. He won 5 stages in total, stages 3 and 5, and in the last 3. But unfortunately for him, it was just in the first half, him and Teemu were only separated by around 10 seconds. But on that Saturday afternoon, the Finn pulled away, got the lead over 20 seconds. Despite winning the last 3 stages, including the power stage, fortunately for Kai, he just ran out of time. Maybe just needed 1 more stage, he might have been able to grab the victory. But great battle between those two, and for 3rd as well has Mikko Haikela, rounding out the podium after battling with Eric Paetarin. I apologise for my terrible pronunciation, but Eric was actually leading that battle heading into the final day before he lost 30 seconds, or almost 30 seconds on stage 9. And despite finishing 5th on the power stage, he just could not close that gap in the end to Mikko. And finishing 4th on the power stage and 5th overall was the Swede, the Rallycross champion, the DTM champion, Mattias Ekström and his Skoda. Expected a close battle between him and Johan Kristoffersson, his rival from Rallycross as well. But Kristoffersson was actually winning that battle heading into the second day. He was in 6th, Ekström was in 7th, but unfortunately for the reigning Rallycross champion, he lost 9 minutes on stage 4, and despite battling back to grabbing a point and being 2nd on the power stage for Johan, a bit disappointing in his VW Polo. As Ekström though got a great top 5, very solid finish for the Swede. As you had Gregor Yitz, the Estonian, finishing in 6th ahead of Pekka Keski-Korsu in 7th, and then Thomas Skantz in 8th ahead of the veteran Mikael Solowal, the pole in the Citroen, the almost 60-year-old, finishing in 9th. Very solid one for him, with Gustafsson rounded out the points. But in general, the Arctic Rally Finland, very exciting rally. Just 10 stages, but 10 incredibly fast, and seeing those cars go through the snowbanks, especially Solberg on stage 5. He clipped the snowbank. He thought the corner was like flat out, which would be in a WRC car. He actually forgot he was in a WRC2 car. Went into the bank, but just kept his foot in, kept going. It was absolutely insane. I have to try and find the clip for you, but yeah, he hitting that like 150 kilometers per hour, no problem. We also saw the likes of Tanak as well go into the barriers on the second day, and everyone was talking about, especially the WRC 2 and 3 drivers, talking about the second runs on Saturday in particular, how tricky it was stages 6, 7 and 8. But talking about some other runners as well, we had a couple of Ford drivers return into the championship after a while. We had Lorenzo Bertelli returning after his last one in Chile in 2019. Well, he was 16th after the first day and then got stuck in a snowbank on stage 3. But it was very tricky for him, but he did enjoy being back, and hopefully we'll see more of him the rest of this season. And also the veteran Yanni Tuineho, the almost 50-year-old who every crow I saw from this weekend was like, oh, I'm having great fun. I'm a bit old for this though. All these youngsters, way too quick for me. And then on stage 2, when he was in 12th, he just had his best stage as well on stage 8, finishing in the top 10. After the day, he had a very finished exit. Coming out of a sauna, he slipped on some ice and dislocated his shoulder. So he had to go to hospital, got it popped back in, but unfortunately he had to retire from the rally, and hopefully have a very speedy recovery. Really always delightful Finn. And what a surprising result we had, where it was basically a reverse almost Monte Carlo, where Hyundai never really quite got the setup right. It felt like in Monte Carlo we were never comfortable. Toyota blitzed it, getting a 1-2, rounding 3 of the top 5 places. And then we see here in Finland, where you expect Toyota, this is where their car was born, on these Finnish roads. You expect them to like dominate, but they were never really comfortable with the setup, and Hyundai working on it right up to the last, right up to the shakedown, right up to the first stage, and they got it right, and they got the double podium. They filled, 3 of the top 5, and it's very interesting. It's going to be very interesting this season with M Sport taking kind of a step back, putting all their eggs in the 2022 basket. We perhaps won't see them battling for victories, maybe even top 5s. Unfortunately, but we're going to see a titanic battle between Hyundai and Toyota. And I know this is the point I said when I talked about Sebastian Ogier being the greatest, like how you can see with although there was a lack of competition. Well, for Ogier, yeah, we've only got 2 manufacturers battling, but you've got the likes of Nerville, of Tanak, of Evans, of Rovanperä, of Breen when he turns up, of Sorda when he turns up as well. Like, you've got titanic battles here in the top 5 of the WRC, so hopefully maybe even Ollie Solberg in the future as well. He had top 5 pace in a couple of stages, so you can see that in the future. And that was perhaps the story of the weekend. Like Eskapakalapi, brilliant, destroying the field in WRC2 on his return. Like, he was definitely a top story, but the biggest story is perhaps how impressive Ollie Solberg was in that Hyundai, and it's been a rapid rise for the teenager, and along with Kalle Rovanperä, we are seeing the future of the WRC. So I thought it was a good time to maybe learn about these 2 drivers and see what the sons of former WRC winners and champions are like. So let's begin with the championship leader then, Kalle Rovanperä, born on the 1st October in 2000. He is the son of Harry Rovanperä, the former Seat, Peugeot, Mitsubishi and Skoda WRC driver, who won a rally, 2001 Swedish rally, finished top 5 in the championship that season, and was a very good driver in his own right. But for Kalle, it's all been about speed. He began riding motorbikes and ATVs when he was just 3. Began driving since the age of 6. He was driving the likes of Toyota Scarlett, even Citroen C2s when he became a teenager. As we took part in his first rally at the age of 10 in Estonia, and started competing in Latvia from the age of 13, where you don't actually need a driver's license to take part in rallying. And between stages on those rallies, his co-driver Risto Palainen, used to be the co-driver of his father, had to drive between the stages while Rovanperä drove on the very fast stuff. But he took part in Latvia for a couple of years in their R2 class. Like, he won the R2 class in 2015, become the youngest driver then to win the national championship in 2016 at just the age of 16, when he won it in a Skoda S2000 and R5 car. He changed cars midway through the season. Also that year he took his debut in a WRC car at the Bettega Memorial, finishing second to Elvin Evans, his future teammate, as they both drove Ford Fiestas. He won the rally in the following year, and behind him that year was a young Ollie Solberg in one of his first runs in the WRC car. Then in 2017, Rovanperä won the Latvia Championship once again, and he was given special permission to drive in the Finnish Championship as well, and he won his first rally in Mikkeli by 10.7 seconds ahead of a certain Teemu Asema, who won, of course, the WRC3 class in Arctic Rally Finland. And he was also given special permission by the Finnish authorities to pass his driving test. He did it the day after he turned 17. Normally you have to be 18 to pass your driving test over there. And so that meant he could take part in European and World rallies. And he finished second on his European Rally Championship debut in the Rally Laipaja. And then towards the end of the year, in 2017, he took part in his first WRC rally in Great Britain in his Ford Fiesta R5. Unfortunately, he stood off the road on his first afternoon. But a fortnight later, he finished 10th overall, as he was the only WRC2 runner, so he won his class, and became the youngest point scorer, though, in WRC history at just 17 years of age. For 2018 and 19, he signed a 2-year deal with Skoda, and he had a titanic battle with his teammate Pontus Tiedemann in Argentina, where he suffered a huge crash on the final day, though, as Tiedemann won. Rovanperä did win in Great Britain and Spain later in the year to finish third in the championship behind Tiedemann and champion Jan Kopecki, the veteran Czech driver. And then in a newly created WRC2 Pro class, he won 5 rallies in 2019 on his way to the championship. He's only finished off the podium once at the Tour de Corse, as he cruised to the title ahead of Citroen's Matt Solberg and Ford's Gus Greensmith. And then of course last year he stepped up to WRC class with Toyota, finished 5th on his debut in the Monte Carlo Rally, and then he grabbed his maiden podium in the WRC at Rally Sweden, finishing 3rd ahead of his teammate Sebastian Ogier, and winning the power stage as well, becoming the youngest driver to win the power stage in WRC. He finished in the top 5 for every rally apart from crashing out in Italy, as he finished in the top 5 in the championship ahead of the Fords and fellow countrymen Iska Api and Teemu Salonen. It's certainly been a rapid rise for Rovanperä, a guy who's we've seen the talent for over half of his life. There was a famous video when he was 8 of him like drifting around perfectly in his backyard, and now he's leading the championship. And could that be something that could happen to another young phenom in Ollie Solberg? As born on the 23rd of September 2001, the son of 2003 WRC champion and 2 times World Rally Cross champion Petter Solberg and former rally driver Pernilla Wolfridsson, Ollie Solberg has also been competing since a young age, as at the age of 8 he started in cross karting, winning his first race, and then he won multiple Norwegian and Nordic cross kart championships. He stepped up the cars in 2017, taking part in the Ray X Nordic Championship in his father's WRX winning Citroen DS3. He won a couple of rounds in 2017 before returning in 2018 and winning the title with a dramatic victory in the final round in Tirol. He also started to enter rallying in 2017 when he took part in Rally Lusni in a Peugeot 208 R2. After a couple of years competing in the R2 class in the Latvian Championship, he stepped up to R5 equipment in 2019 and had an incredibly busy year, as he won the Latvian Rally Championship, but he also took part in the American Rally Championship, and he was the teammate to Mark Higgins for Subaru Motorsports USA, and he took part in a Subaru Impreza USA WRX. He won 3 rallies, the Olympus Rally, STPR and Lake Superior, on his way to 3rd in the standings behind his teammate Higgins, who won the title ahead of McKenna, as he also became the youngest winner of the European Rally Championship round at Rally Laipaja, the Latvian round. And in the end of the year, he also made his WRC debut in 2019 as he raced alongside his father in a VW Polo R5. Unfortunately, he retired, but his father did have a storybook ending to his career as he won his final rally in their class, scoring a point as well. Then last year, Ollie Solberg, he continued in the VW Polo, but also took part in rallies in a Skoda with technical support from Skoda, and I was a bit contentious as he took part in the WRC 3 class, normally reserved just for privateer entries, and he also competed in the European Rally Championship. In WRC 3, he won in Estonia and finished on the podium in the finale. At Monza, he finished 4th in the standings, and in the European Rally Championship, he was runner-up to Alexei Dulaknik. I can never say his name, I apologise. He also won in Latvia once again and only lost the championship by 9 points, but he was the winner of the ERC1 junior title ahead of Gregor Monster. And despite interest from M Sport in the past off-season, he chose to sign a 2-year deal for Hyundai for this year and 2022. And there's a big question about what he will do next year. Of course, this year concentrating on WRC2 with maybe the odd outing in the WRC. But for 2022, could we see another step up to the top class, just like we've seen with Kalle Rovanperä, and maybe take the top class by storm? Now, it's interesting seeing how rapid the rises are for Solberg and Rovanperä. In less than 5 years, Rovanperä has gone from winning the R2 class in Latvia to leading the World Rally Championship. But for Solberg, in less than 5 years, he could be from the Rally X Nordic Championship in R2 in Latvia to being the WRC runner with Hyundai. Maybe part-time like they planned with Rovanperä, Toyota did last year, but it'd be very interesting to see the futures of Solberg and Rovanperä. Like, we've seen a couple of drivers that could be in the WRC for the next, what, 10, 15 years at least, just like their fathers before them. And let me know what you think of Rovanperä and Solberg. Do you think they will be future world champions, will be battling each other for the titles in the future? I would love to see it. But that was the Arctic Rally Finland. Those are Ollie Solberg and Kalle Rovanperä, two impressive young drivers and the future of the WRC. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Some more power oversteer. I'll be back next week. I don't know what I'll be looking at. It will be something else rather than WRC, because there's a bit of a break before Rally Croatia, the inaugural Rally Croatia on the calendar. Some tarmac roads, basically replacing Rally Germany. It'll be very interesting to see what the rally is like and who will be on top. Will it be a Hyundai or Toyota? Will it be Ogier or Tanak or Nerville or Evans, or who knows? But thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Alright, time to hop on another train then. Alright, let's go back to this one. Right. Lappy, ease on, man. If no one can do it, Lappy can. There we go. Perfect.